Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching VOV1 special talk show today with a very interesting topic relating to the cooperation between Vietnam and Africa countries. So, with a population of 1.4 billion and is expected to double by 2050, South Africa is a region with the destination for the transfer of goods and technology, and it is also a rising area for the global economic development. And for Vietnam, over the past time, we have always valued the cooperation, the traditional friendship with African countries, and we wish to strengthen this cooperation in the future on both bilateral and multilateral platform. And we understand that African countries have stood side by side with us through the difficult time until now in the time of development and transformation. The cooperation between Vietnam and African countries span from different fields, from politics, economic, to culture, tourism, digital transformation, and environment. And the official establishment of diplomatic relations between Vietnam and the African Union in the late 2023 is a clear testimony for the Vietnam's commitment to a stronger, more prosperous, and peaceful Africa. And so on this occasion, the very special occasion of the Africa Day, which is celebrated on May the 25th, let's take a look back at the cooperation between Vietnam and African countries and also find new ways to boost this cooperation in the near future. And joining us here today, we have Mr. Jamil Chouabi, the ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco to Vietnam, also the head of African embassies in Vietnam. And we have Ms. Aman Salama, ambassador of the Arab Republic of Egypt to Vietnam. I would like to also introduce Ms. Vuiswa Tolelo, the ambassador of the Republic of South Africa to Vietnam. And last but not least, Mr. Lê Phước Minh, former director of the Institute of African Middle East Studies. Thank you very much, all the special guests, for joining with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so talking about the importance of the Africa Day, which is celebrated on May the 25th. The first question I want to ask Ambassador Jamil Chouabi, can you please share with us the importance of this day and why do African countries choose the theme Africa for Africans for this year event?
A very good morning to the audience. I would like at the outset, on behalf of my colleagues here and all African ambassadors accredited in Hanoi, to convey our sincerest thanks to the VOV for this prize-worthy initiative to host us here. And I hope that this talk show will be the beginning of a longer partnership between VOV and the African embassies accredited here in Vietnam.
Thank you very much.
As far as your question is concerned, the Africa Day is marks the establishment by the African founding fathers of the organization of the African Unity back in the early 60s. And it's an opportunity for African countries to celebrate the achievements reached so far by Africa, the progress also, and the shared struggle for freedom, the independence, and development. The significance of the theme chosen this year, which is Africa for Africans, highlights three main points. The first is the need for African solutions to African challenges. Africans are mature enough now to devise their own solutions and reject any ready-made formula that could be imposed by foreign entities or financial institutions. The second point is that the importance of Pan-African unity and cross-border solidarity. And the third point is to come with a renewed focus on social justice, economic independence, and the fight against predation and neocolonialism. I think this theme aims to inspire both the leaders and the people to work together for a dignified and prosperous Africa. I think this sums up the main messages before choosing this Africa for Africans.
Well, that is a very thoughtful theme for this year event, and I hope that we can, African countries can achieve this goal that you have set for this year. So, talking also about music, about dance, about culture, I would like to ask Ambassador Wiswatalelo. So, with the celebration of this year's South African National Day, how recently Vietnamese people had a chance to witness many beautiful dances, the music, the culture, and the enthusiasm of South African people. So for this year Africa Day, what special features will the South African Embassy introduce to the Vietnamese people?
Oh, thank you so much again for VOV for having us as the collective of African ambassadors, and especially to reunite us with an old friend, Professor Ming. It's been always lovely to work together to expound and expand knowledge about Africa within Vietnam. I must first disclaim that there will be no dancing on Africa Day. Obviously, the work that we seek to do when we promote our national days is to also enhance the work that we will be doing through Africa Day, because we are showcasing a snippet of what Africa has to offer as a continent. So with South Africans National Day, you were able to enjoy our cuisine, our music, and some of our officials had adorned their beautiful traditional attire. But of course, as true South Africans, there is nothing that happens without song and dance in South Africa. So celebrating 30 years since the first democratic elections was not just a feat about celebration, but it was a testimony to the friendship between Vietnam and South Africa, because Vietnam played a critical and instrumental role in helping South Africa to attain freedom. Vietnam was amongst the countries that had sponsored the ideas of mass mobilization and public resistance to oppression. So our history with Vietnam is not only stemmed in the 30 years of democratic relations that we have, but it goes way beyond when South Africa was fighting for its freedom and for the end of apartheid. And so as we go into Africa Day, we want to showcase the depth of that relationship with Vietnam, because it is important for the Vietnamese to know that their people, not only did they contribute in spirit, some of them laid down their lives for us as South Africans to enjoy our freedom. But it is also important for them to know that our cultures are not so far apart. We have so much that brings us together. And so in this Africa Day, we will showcase the work that we do as bilateral countries, but also to share with Vietnamese that as the chair of G20 this year, South Africa is very committed to opening up the G20 to become about the global South. Because we understand usually the conversation is around the developed nations, but for us it's about bringing the global South together, especially bringing Africa's voice to the fore, because the theme for us is about solidarity, it's about development, and it's about justice, and all those things are things that the global South speaks for and represent. And so we have, in true South African form, they've just released a G20 song called Africa's Call. And if you go to YouTube, you'll find it there. Just download it. It's a wonderful tune. But again, true to South African nature, we celebrate through song. When we're sad, we sing. When we are mourning, we sing. When we are contemplating and thinking, we sing. And this is where we get our best ideas. And I think this song of the G20 is an indication that music, dance and rhythm is part of who we are as African people, but it is not only who we are as African people.
Well, with that, I think that after this talk show, the G20 song will have much more views. And yes, you also mentioned about the strong cooperation between Vietnam and Africa countries, and also African, South African in particular. For that, I would like to move on to ask Mr. Lê Phước Minh. Looking back at the relations between Vietnam and African countries, what do you think are the highlights of this cooperation, which is considered also the model for the South-South cooperation?
First of all, I would like to say it's a great idea for to open this talk show between representative ambassador of Africa with the supportive from VOV, and also thank for that invitation. Secondly, I see the relationship between Vietnam and Africa is we have more or less about 60 years experience of collaboration with many key important countries in Africa. Then look back that relationship, we see both government and people is love and support each other. It is, however, now is time for us to think about why the collaboration between Vietnam and African still very, very low under the expectation between African and Vietnam government and people expectation. Then we hope that African embassies and delegation and Vietnam should open more, and of course supported by media of Vietnam, to bring in understanding between the two, African people and Vietnamese people, African businessmen, Vietnamese businessmen, and also raise more awareness for the government leadership. I think that's it. And I see now Vietnam very much focused on the development. If you see, we are recently celebrating the 50 year of our reunification. Then this model could be shared more for African countries, for African friends, because in Africa, we, according to our studies, still have there or somewhere else still have a civil war, conflicting, and food security problem and social problem. Then I wish if we should have more and more activity, more activities, same like this talk show, in order to share between our Vietnamese model with African model. I think that will be good for both sides, mutual benefit between Africa and Vietnam.
Yeah, that is also a very interesting point that you raised about the help of media to help boost the cooperation between Africa and Vietnam. And so let's move on to the next question. I want to ask Ambassador Jamil Chouabi. While Africa has proposed the African Union's agenda for 2030 with a vision of an integrated, prosperous and peaceful Africa, so what do African countries think of the contribution of Vietnam to the achievements of this program, and what do you think is the most impressive one to you?
I would like first to focus on one thing, is that we should all work towards correcting many of the stereotypes that are vehicled by many, which we could qualify as Afro-pessimists. They portray Africa as being a country of conflicts and country of disease. While this is true, but the majority of African countries are stable countries, and many of which have even realized the highest growth. I mean, out of the top 10 growth in the world, more than 6 are Africans. then all of us, people of the South, we should believe in our potential, in our capabilities, and be, as I said, self-reliant. And we do share, as African countries, many principles and commonalities with Vietnam. Mainly the attachment to the principle of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and national unity. Many also African countries, including mine, believe in the virtues of South-South cooperation, in the virtues of multilateralism, and of solidarity between the South to make the voice of the South more vocal and more heard in the international arena. You know, many of our countries are also active on the ground for maintaining peace and promoting stability in Africa. Because as we say, Africa for Africans, we do believe that we can come up with our proper solutions, but also seeking solidarity and assistance we needed from other countries, including Vietnam, which is so graciously participating in peacekeeping forces in two key countries in Africa, which is Central Africa and south of Sudan. And this contribution is highly appreciated by all, and is more accepted also by African countries, because they consider also Vietnam as a former country that has suffered from these scourges of war and scourges of division and scourges of... Then I think they take Vietnam contribution as being sincere and stemming from this concern of showing solidarity and showing genuine solution to these problems of instability in our region.
I think that is also one thing that builds the mutual trust between Vietnam and African countries. Okay, so that is for the Africa Day and the importance of that event. And you are tuning into VOV1 talk show Vietnam-Africa relations with many opportunities for cooperation. And in the first part of this talk show, we talk about the Africa Day and the importance, the significance of this event. And we also hear about the activities that the African embassies will bring to Vietnam for people to understand more about the culture and the big picture of Africa. And from this story, I would like to move on to the cooperation between Vietnam and Africa countries. And also let's discuss the story of economic, of cooperation, political, and also other fields including culture and tourism. Driven by the shared interest, Vietnam's engagement with African countries is a testament to the power of the South-South cooperation. With a population of 1.4 billion and expected to double by 2050, Africa is an important market, highlighted by the African Continental Free Trade Area signed in 2019. Vietnam's engagement with Africa covers a wide range of areas, including trade, investment, development cooperation involving capacity building, technology transfer, and diplomacy. One area in which Vietnam's engagement has had a particular impact in Africa is agriculture. Since the 1980s, Vietnam has signed many bilateral and trilateral cooperation agreements with Guinea, Namibia, Mozambique, Senegal, Benin, Madagascar, Mali, Congo, and Chad, sending hundreds of experts and technicians to instruct farmers in African countries on intensive rice cultivation techniques, irrigation, etc., with financial support from the third parties such as FAO, JICA, France, Japan, and South Africa. Vietnam also welcomes experts and students from African countries to study and learn about agricultural production models, organizing many seminars on agriculture with Africa, with the participation of ministry localities on both sides. not only sharing experiences and transferring agricultural production knowledge with many African countries in the South-South Cooperation Program, which is considered a typical model in cooperation between developing countries. Vietnam also promotes bilateral cooperation in rice export, rubber tree, coffee, cashew, vegetables, aquaculture, with many countries such as Angola, Mozambique, Egypt, and Libya. The agricultural projects that Vietnam participates in the region are of the development support nature, popularizing intercropping and crop rotation techniques to help increase local crop productivity, such as rice, sweet potatoes, soybeans, from 2 to 4 times, contributing to improving people's lives and solving food security. After nearly 30 years of implementing South-South agricultural projects with Africa, Vietnam has sent nearly 2,000 experts to support African countries in agricultural development, which has been recognized and highly appreciated by the beneficiary countries. Along with that, there are nearly 30 documents and cooperation agreements being signed in the fields of agriculture and aquaculture, contributing to creating a long-term framework for cooperation. Many rice varieties, experiences, and good agricultural practices of Vietnam have been successfully applied in Africa, helping this region to improve people's lives and ensure food security. In addition to trade and agriculture, Vietnam and Africa are building strong ties in the energy sector. Vietnam's experience in developing renewable energy, including wind and solar power, is important for African countries as they seek to exploit their own renewable energy potential. This knowledge exchange is essential to address climate change and meet Africa's energy needs. Vietnam's investment in Africa extends to infrastructure development, which not only promotes trade but also improves the quality of life for people across the continent. Vietnam's growing presence in Africa not only benefits both sides, but also has the potential to contribute to global efforts to address food security, sustainable development, and climate change. Vietnam and Africa are well positioned to prosper and enjoy a successful future together. Now for the next question, I would like to ask Ms. Wiswa Tolelo. At the moment, South Africa is Vietnam's first and only partner for cooperation and development in Africa. And the country is also the largest export market of Vietnam in Africa in general, with the trade exchange reaching an average of nearly 1.3 billion. So what can we see from this number?
Well, that is an indication, firstly, not only of solidarity in words, but solidarity in actions. Because as much as we have a beautiful, long history of solidarity and helping each other to end injustice and peace, our people need to eat. And for our people to eat, the economics need to follow the political conversations. And for us as South Africa, we have appreciated that this is one step in the right direction. Between South Africa and Vietnam, trade has been growing steadily. South Africa exports in the main to Vietnam minerals and base metals and animal hides and fruits, right? And from that we get finished products like cell phones and computers, and we
very important.
We also get very fashionable shoes and clothes. So we have a lot of import in terms of the textile industry. That is a very wonderful conversation happening through economics, and I think in the year 2024 we have seen an increase of the trade between Vietnam and South Africa. It has reached 1.7 billion USD. If we will remember that in 2023, when we were celebrating 30 years of diplomatic relations, the vice presidents of South Africa and Vietnam had an occasion to visit each other's country, and they had challenged us as embassies to make sure that these trade figures continuously grow. And I'm happy to say that we can see a year later that there has been growth, and we are hoping that the end of 2025 will show more growth, responding to the call of our leaders.
Mission accomplished. Okay, so from this cooperation between Vietnam and South Africa, I want to ask Mr. Jamel Chouabi, how do you assess the potential for economic cooperation between Vietnam with not only South Africa but also African countries in general?
As I as I mentioned, there should be first some commonalities and shared values and principles which lay the foundation for a sound and everlasting cooperation between African countries and Vietnam. And I will cite some of these commonalities which apply to Morocco as well as to most of our countries in Africa. As I said, when you share values like the attachment to the principle of sovereignty, national unity, territorial integrity, and then to the virtues of multilateralism, diversification also of partners beyond our respective regions. I mean, this seems as a trigger for sound cooperation, for building more trust between the two sides. Particularly for Morocco, we do share the geostrategic position between Vietnam being as a gateway to Southeast Asia, and Morocco, which is perceived also as a gateway to the entrance to Africa, to Europe, and even to the Arab world. Many of our economies in Africa are just complementary. They are not competitive with Vietnam. I will give an example from my own country, because as I represent Morocco, I cannot talk on behalf of the others. But for our special case, Morocco, for instance, excels in fertilizers, in automotives, and other things. And Vietnam excels, for instance, in electronics, as Her Excellency just mentioned, in agriculture and in textile, among others. But in our case, just to show that we are not competing each other, we can be complementary. And this fact could also be an additional factor that could enhance cooperation between the two between the two sides. Another factor is that most countries are engaging into huge and ambitious structural programs and projects, be it in Egypt, in South Africa, in Morocco, in infrastructure like high-speed trains in Morocco, and in digitalization, for instance. And the same programs are launched here also in Vietnam. Then this also, as a common factor, could constitute a basis for a win-win cooperation between the two countries. We can just in the beginning start by sharing experience, expertise, know-how, and even lessons learned from past implementation of projects. And this can have an added value to our cooperation. There is also one thing that I would like here to emphasize is the fact that our cooperation up to now has not reached its real potential, because it's mainly focused with many countries just on trade exchange. And when I say trade exchange, for many countries it's from Africa, it's just raw material with no high added value. Then maybe the best alternative that could give more momentum and more substance to our bilateral cooperation is to engage in some joint ventures, which will add value to our products from both countries. This is one point I would like to stress, and that could constitute the next step in the evolution of our partnership between African countries and Vietnam. This also should have like a suitable legal framework. Most of our cooperation, I mean with African countries, are done within the framework of the Joint Bilateral Commission, which is a large commission, like we say, one size fits all, which has become a bit outdated. The main focus should be, in sectorial, in sectorial excellence domains. Like in digitalization, there should be a subcommittee, bilateral subcommittee on digitalization, a subcommittee on high tech, for instance, a subcommittee on agriculture, a subcommittee in electronics or this. This will give both sides to deepen discussion, proposals, and initiatives. Otherwise, when we talk in a very large framework, we tend just to not to be very focused and no substantial outcome will come out of this. I think that I have talked more than 1 minute.
Yeah, and from that, I hope that more subcommittee will be established in the future for each field, so that we can take that as a chance to boost our cooperation. And also, you mentioned that we talk more about the trade exchange between the two sides. And I think that other alternatives like culture, education, and tourism are also an important pillar in the cooperation between the two sides. So I want to ask Ms. Aman Salama, could you share about the Vietnam and Egypt's potential to develop this tourism and culture exchange?
Okay, sure. Egypt was one of the first countries in the region to establish diplomatic relations with Vietnam. It was in 1963. And we celebrated our 60th anniversary in 2023. And since this date, we have always had very successful exchanges, cultural exchanges between both countries. Also, we were keen, and both countries were keen to participate in different cultural festivals and in the International Circus Festival and in the puppet shows. Also, we were, and also the Vietnamese side was very keen to participate in different cultural activities. I find here, living in Vietnam, how the Vietnamese people really like Egypt and like to visit Egypt. And we have witnessed lately a surge in the numbers of the Vietnamese tourists visiting Egypt, and in the same also after the facilitation of the visa requirements, also there is a surge in Egyptians coming here and visiting Vietnam and enjoying the beautiful landscape of Vietnam. The cultural and tourist relations they are very important. Besides the economic and trade relations, they complement. It is not less important than any other fields of cooperation, because it is related to people and people interaction, which is extremely important. And these cultural and relations and tourism relations, they contributed also, and they contribute to raising the awareness of the young generations regarding the friendship between our two nations, and consolidate the cultural links between our countries. I think that the cultural and tourism relations and people-to-people interaction complement with the economic and trade and the scientific cooperation. Also, we have many Vietnamese students who have also they have acquired many scholarships, and they studied the Arabic language in the Egyptian universities. And we have also an Egyptian professor who teaches Arabic language in Hanoi University. Also Arabic language and learning Arabic language, this also is an important component also of the cultural cooperation. So the Vietnamese students and young people can understand more about also the culture. We have some Arab countries in Africa, so it is also important. I don't know if I can also mention that in Africa we have so many also economic communities and regions and free trade. It's a free trade area. That also is very important to consider. We have the African continental free trade area. We have many economic free trade communities, and there are so many issues to explore and to study in order to strengthen and promote the relations between Vietnam and the African countries. And as His Excellency mentioned, that also business to business communities to have more interaction, business to business interaction is extremely important. We help and we assist, but also it's very important. Thank you very much.
Okay, very interesting thing that you mentioned. I think the Arabian language is very difficult to learn, but the fact that there are more and more Vietnamese people trying to learn this language is like a proof of the love of Vietnamese people for Egypt in particular and for Africa in general. And but we also talk about the potential of cooperation between the two sides. It has not reached to our full potential, and because maybe one of the problem is with the geographical distance. So this question I want to ask Mr. Lê Phước Minh, what are the solutions to bridge this gap?
First, I would like to continue at the point of the ambassador. Is that there are many different areas which is we can promoting collaboration, especially economic cooperation, following the political relationship. But why still is not we are not reached the potential? One of the things we learned from our experience from Vietnam, like about 30-40 years ago, after our civil war, and we try to rebuild up our countries. Then at the time, the government policy as well as government encouragement, lots of young and knowledgeable Vietnamese students go overseas to like Japan, Korea, Australia, and Europe, America, etc. Both scholarship and self-sponsor, a lot of them. Then, of course, some of them very small number, they stay back. But many of them, they come back to Vietnam after study. Then the investor following. I think the investor already from Korea, from Japan, from Europe, from Australia, America, they already contacting with the Vietnamese student during the time they study. They preparing. Even they have some kind sponsorship or whatever. Then when the Vietnamese student graduate, they come back. The investor, they come. They feel very comfortable when they invest to Vietnam. They have someone who understand well the way of their working and the culture, some languages, and the person who well training from their home country. And that's why so I would like to share with this. I see maybe one of the solution to fill up the gap between Africa and Vietnam, because of business of Vietnam, Africa don't understand well, trusty and believing, and seeing the potential benefit. Then that's why we wish if African country, a government, embassy, send more students to Vietnam, like in agriculture, civil construction, healthcare, and many other things. And yesterday I receiving the letter from rector, president of Maritime University in Haiphong. They sent to me the VACA, Vietnam Africa Economic Cooperation. They said this year they offer, that means 2025, they would like to offer 50 scholarships to African students. They asked our Vietnam, our organization, Vietnam Africa Economic Cooperation, to promoting, to recruit right students for them. They would like to say. Then again, I would like, one of the solution, I think, we hope more and more students from African to come to Vietnam. Like when I talked with Mozambique ambassador, he said, according to the arrangement scholarship between the two governments, every year about 10 students from Mozambique come to Vietnam to study about agriculture. I said, within the country, like about 30 million of hectare of the land, and occupy only about 5 million. So you have plenty of hectare, but you need more human resources in agriculture. You not only send 10 students, you put a few more zero. Not only increasing number of increasing the zero, let's say 100, no, 1,000, even a few thousand students. Then after a few years, you have enough human resources. And agriculture university Vietnam quite strong and capacity. They be able to absorb to receiving students. Not only agriculture, many other universities of Vietnam. Now they open for international students, especially for African students, because they also need to upgrade their international ranking. They need international students. So I think one of the things, and when your students come here, I think the business of Vietnam, the company, they will contact with the African student, that they prepare for that. Then we have to think about at least 2, 3, or 4, or 5 years. We have to prepare for that. Then I think education is the important. Secondly, Vietnam, about 30, 40 years ago, we have a very good program to well training the Vietnamese expert. We train them language, culture, how to work in the Africa country. Then we send our expert in education, in health, in agriculture to African country. About 30 years ago, we have the center to the what we call experts center preparation to send it to other country, including South America, like Cuba and African. But now no more. Then I think I wish Vietnam will again with the requirement from embassy, African embassy, we should re-establish the expert preparation center to prepare, because of our about 20 years from now, we think a lot of our experts go there to Africa, but not so success because of the different culture, different languages, because of they are lonely there. They have no colleague there to work. So hopefully I think education and expert should be to fill the gap so far. And of course other thing like you see more activity from Vietnam, like in the year 2000 to now, every year during the African Day, 25th of May, we open the different international workshop with involvement and participation from leadership and managers from Africa and Vietnam about green economy, about the digital, about the food security, about the integration economy, whatever. So we should have more of that activity from Vietnam and join hand with the embassy delegation. So I think a lot of things we have to do. But again, I think education and make people and business both sides understand and know more each other will be important. Thank you.
Okay, so the solutions can be said to be the cooperation between business to business the exchange of students and experts. So we can not only limit to the exchange between governments, but also spread to the people and people. Yeah, so let's assume that we have the mechanism to bridge this gap. Now let's look at the future. For the opportunities for cooperation, I want to ask Mr. Jamil Chouabi. Morocco is the leading country in Africa in the green transition process. So while Vietnam, we are also striving to achieve sustainable agriculture, sustainable development goals. What do you think about the potential for cooperation between the two countries in this field?
I think the potential is huge for two reasons. First, Morocco is a continental leader, together with some few countries in Africa, in terms of renewables. And the results are so extraordinary. We have managed now to reach in our electricity mix 45%, in 2023. And provisions, mainly the target will be 52 in 2030 and 56 in 2037. I mean, the second point, as I say, is also Vietnam is a leading in its region among the ASEAN countries. Vietnam shines out. Then, I mean, we have accumulated a lot of experience in this field, and my leitmotif all the time is that we can think about a new setup. That's of a joint venture, not only between our two countries, but it could involve a third party, either in Africa, where there is a huge lack and need for electricity, mainly in rural areas, and Vietnam and Morocco can join forces and have a clear and suitable strategy to be present there massively. And I think, as I said, the potential is very huge. There is another sector now which is coming, is the green hydrogen. And Morocco also has initiated an ambitious program with many foreign partners, and I think it's now the right time for our two countries to get together, and because it's a new flourishing sector, to reflect on ways how to implement huge projects in this domain. Then, as I say, the potential is huge. I will just bound on what Mr. Min has just said about the need for us to increase many parallel channels, that those of students and experts. But I would all the time insist on the fact that joint venture and partner for Vietnam is to partner with local
people,
actors in Africa, will make it easy and easier for Vietnamese operators to succeed in carrying out their projects in Africa. Why? Because the local partner will make it easier for him to understand the culture of the people, to understand also the intricacies of bureaucracy there. It may also rely on the partner by using his logistic networks. Then the Vietnamese operator will gain time and money by associating himself with a well-established African partner within Africa, be it a local or because I will give you an example, very tangible example. Morocco now is the first investor in Western Africa, and the second after South Africa at the continental level. Because in Morocco we are Afro-optimist. we didn't fall to the idea that Africa is a risky continent where business is impossible, because there are many stereotypes that circulating. But we went there, and now we have many flourishing projects. And in the banking sector also, we have a massive presence there. And this can also, as I say, for financial, because I know that some Vietnamese operators had some problems when it comes to payment. Then, I mean, you can rely on Moroccans' presence in this region, West Africa, to find suitable solution for you in there. Then why I am bringing all this is just to say that we can work on many levels.
Yeah.
Not just trade, but economic, but also people to people.
Yeah.
And by people to people, it's not in tourism, but for me, it's through decentralization, cooperation, through the twinning of cities, and not only cities at the managerial level, but between universities, twinning between universities, hospitals, for instance, ports, and other where there is a direct interaction of citizens. Like this, you will enrich, I mean, as I say, the partnership, and not be limited just to the governmental level, include also the private sector and also the people.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is something we should reflect on and encourage in our future interaction with Vietnam.
Yeah, I think that answer also aligns with Mr. Lê Phước Minh solution for bridging the gap between the two sides. And yeah, we talk about the green energy transition, we talk about green hydrogen, about renewable energy, and I would like to move on to another field, which is food security and digital infrastructure development. And I want to ask Ambassador Aman Salama, how do you assess the potential for bilateral cooperation in this field?
Well, of course, food security is a very important also field now worldwide, not only between Vietnam and African countries or Vietnam and Egypt, but it's a top priority topic now in all the world. Both countries, they have a very big agriculture sector, and the agriculture sector is very important in both Egypt and Vietnam. And we have an MOU for agricultural cooperation signed between both countries. We would like to exchange expertise in many fields related to agriculture and related to food security. Also, we'd like to cooperate and to exchange experience in the fisheries, in the rice cultivation, in many fields. So it is important. We have like a working group between both ministries. It's important that they, as Ambassador of Morocco has mentioned before, like to have a subcommittee on agriculture between both countries in order to seek the best ways to strengthen the agricultural relations between both countries. I think also agriculture is an extremely important sector. As both countries, also the agricultural exports, they form a very important component of the exports for Egypt and for Vietnam. So I'm looking forward to strengthening this very important field also in the near future. We had many bilateral visits between both countries, and always agriculture cooperation is one of the main topics that we always discuss. Regarding the digital transformation, in Egypt we have a very ambitious strategy. The Ministry of Information and Communication, they have an agenda, 2030 agenda and strategy, and they are seeking to build the digital Egypt. Like Vietnam also, they have a very ambitious also plan for digital transformation. This is also an important area that we can cooperate in. The objectives of Egypt, of digital Egypt, it entails the developing of the ICT infrastructure and fostering digital inclusion and achieving the transition to a knowledge-based economy and building capacities and encouraging innovation. Also in Vietnam, digital transformation, it's extremely important, and I know that the Vietnamese government is giving it much importance, and I attended conferences also regarding the priorities of the Vietnamese government in digital transformation, as it is a very important way for economic modernization and business innovation, and also it's an important field of cooperation between our countries. In fact, there are so many areas of cooperation to explore, and as Ambassador of His Excellency, Ambassador of Morocco has mentioned that it is important to have different mechanisms, the governmental mechanism, the private mechanism, the people-to-people, and the local, and the decentralization. So we can have all these kinds of mechanisms to promote in a more quicker pace our bilateral relations. Thank you.
And move on to another field, which is the culture exchange. As far as we know, Ms. Wiswa Tulelo, you have traveled to many regions in Vietnam, explored many of Vietnam's culture and tradition. So I have to ask you about the cultural exchange between Vietnam and South Africa. What do you think are the potentials for this cooperation?
Well, shall we say, okay, I think the important point that we have to underscore, as been shared by Excellencies, is the high-level exchanges and engagements between our countries are based on our people-to-people exchange. And at the heart of our people-to-people exchange is our cultural base, because our culture dictates how we welcome guests, how we engage with guests, how we express ourselves when we are happy, and all those things help us to understand each other. And I think my experience with traveling the length and breadth of Vietnam is realizing that when you take away the facade of our job descriptions and our titles and you connect with the people directly, what a wonderful and amazing experience it is. Part of the work that inspires me a lot is to understand that culture is not stagnant, right? Things that were permissible and acceptable 10 years ago, in these years we are kind of like, oh, we're not so sure that is working. And as we evolve with the culture, it gives us better opportunities to present cultural exchange. And one of the things that I love about the current world is the availability of technology, right? Because 10 years ago, an ordinary Vietnamese would not know what South African cuisine is, because they would have to literally hop on a flight for 20 hours, fly to South Africa, learn the language. But today you have TikTok, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, and instantly we can consume each other's cultures and we can share each other's cultures. But I think it's also that, as Professor Ming was saying, that when you speak about student exchanges, and I consider myself a storyteller because I'm a mother, I love telling stories, and I say that when I ask people in South Africa, when you think Vietnam, what is it that comes to your mind? Or I challenge them, I say, please Google Vietnam and tell me the first 2 images that you will see about Vietnam. The first one is usually Ha Long Bay. The second is a plate of pho.
Traditional food.
Right? And that speaks to the heart of what Vietnamese and who Vietnamese are. And if you reverse that notion and you say, when you Google South Africa, what is the first 2 images that you will see? Most likely you will see Table Mountain, is the first image that you will see. But secondly, you will see a group of South Africans standing around a fireplace with smoke going into the air and meat on the barbecue, right? Because as South Africans, through the braai, that's how we connect, that's how we make people feel welcome. And as we use those opportunities to tell our stories, we are not only sharing who we are, but we are opening up our doors to other people. And it is fortunate for us between South Africa and Vietnam that we are we are very well vested with diversity. Vietnam has about 53 different ethnic minorities. We have 11 ethnic communities, 12 languages in South Africa if you include sign language. And so you cannot say when I get to South Africa I know everybody. You have to get to the regions of South Africa to understand, in the same way that you have to understand that when you go to Saigon, the Vietnamese that is spoken in Saigon is very different from the Vietnamese spoken in Da Nang. As different as it is to the Vietnamese spoken in Sapa.
In the northern part.
Because there are those cultural nuances. And with that comes how we practice our traditions. So when we look at a holiday like Tet, and we learn of the virtue of starting afresh, in the African context, we have the September, which is the new beginnings, because that's when spring arrives. So forget the Western concept that we are told that the year begins in January. Right? But if you look at it in the African way, the year begins in September because that is when new beginnings arrive. That is when the flowers spring. That is when calves are born. That's when life gives a new, fresh meaning. And as we go towards winter, because it is the setting of a life cycle, we go to hibernate, to allow ourselves to rebuild, to refresh. The Vietnamese believe in the same principles, right? And it's finding ways how we can do that. So maybe part of the things that we can do is looking at ways how we can have something like a South Africa Day in Vietnam, and not in the traditional way where we have just an exhibition, but where we have talk shows with VOV, or where we have a TikTok challenge, right, between Vietnamese leaders and South Africans to say, show us something that can remind you of South Africa in Vietnam. Show us something that reminds you of Vietnam in South Africa, where we can have artists collaborate through song, where we can perform about songs that tell the story of who our people are. And these people don't need to be in today's day. They don't need to be in the same room. You don't have to now take them to South Africa. These people can do this virtually, right? They can sit on a platform virtually, compose a beautiful song, release that song and share it with the Vietnamese. But you also have these young kids called the vloggers and the bloggers, right? Whose only wish in life is to go around the world and learn about countries and their cultures. Why can we not, as South Africa and Vietnam, pick on those influential young people in our countries and say, go to South Africa, spend 2 months in South Africa. Not a curated, because curated tours, as much as they are wonderful, they take away the impact of meeting the real people. Because I'm going to take you to the nice places, I'm going to take you to the nice restaurants. I'm not taking you to the villages where people have to understand about, and I understand we speak about access to electricity. I was sitting and thinking, and I remember that one of our farmers was saying, because we were talking about bringing electricity to the farming communities, and he was saying that, I appreciate that you want to bring electricity for my people, right? But do you understand, when you bring electricity to my farms, my production of milk is going to drop. Because my cows do not sleep as long as they see light, right? And this is what electricity does, it brings light, right? My chicken will not lay eggs, because the only reason chickens go to bed is when the sun sets. So for as long as they see the sun, they do not go to sleep. So we have to navigate the needs of our economic sectors with the needs for comfort and modernization. Yes, electricity is an important tool to help us modernize, but we have to understand its impact on our agriculture and farming communities. In the same way that you look at food production, right? There are foods, traditional foods, that you cannot cook on an electrical stove. You need to cook them on a fire, because the way they are made is for the flavor to come out, is through the slow heating of the fire. Electricity is instant heating. You can make noodles on electricity, but you have to think a little bit more if you want to have flavorful dishes that you have to make to fire. But we use that story to tell that ours is not a relationship of confrontation. It's a relationship of, complementary. Because yes, there is need and there is space for modernization and development, but our history and our tradition does not necessarily hold us back. It enriches our move towards modernization.
Okay, so we talk about the cultural exchange. There is a very important, significant symbol between Vietnam and the Moroccan kingdom, which is the Morocco Gate in Bavi and the Vietnamese village. So I want to ask Mr. Jamil Chouabi, what do these places say about the bonding between the two countries?
Actually, the Moroccan Gate in Bavi tells an outstanding and moving story. It was built by Moroccan soldiers who were brought against their will here by the French army to fight a war which was not theirs. And then once here, they come to realize that they are fighting
For what?
for what reason. Then most of them, fled, deserted, and joined the Vinmin. And the symbol, as I say, this gate now is a testimony and a testament to shared history, a shared memory, and a shared struggle for independence and for dignity. What the story tells us also is about Ho Chi Minh himself, and the treatment he reserved to many captives, because not all of them deserted, but some were made captives. But they were treated in a very humane way, in the same fashion as Vietnamese soldiers were given a piece of land, a farm, where they can raise cows at that time, and undertake many agricultural activities, and even get married to Vietnamese. Then, as I say, it's a sad story in the beginning, but it's a magnificent story at the end, because it symbolizes this shared struggle, as I say, and shared memory. What added also and what enhanced the significance of this gate is the fact that another gate was built in Morocco, Vietnamese gate. Why it was built? Because these soldiers here, when the war nearly ended in the early 70s, they were brought together with families, wives and offsprings to Morocco by late King Hassan II, and were given pieces of land just to match the activity they underwent here. And each family were given actually 4 hectares. Then they were living very comfortable life there. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the party, the government, and the former ambassador to Morocco who initiated this project. And now the the Moroccan gate here is no longer an orphan. It has a brother or a sister gate in Morocco. As I say, this both gates are powerful, as I say, reminders of the profound ties between Morocco and Vietnam, and also a reminder of this shared sacrifice. What we should do, both sides, is that we should all the time entertain this this vivid memory to make known and widely shared with the young generation, just to perpetuate the shared memory and shared history.
with the thoughts of that our ambassadors here have mentioned, if you were to briefly talk about the future between Vietnam and Africa, very briefly, what would you say?
Well, every year for the in May, people like me think a lot of about our relationship collaboration between Vietnam and Africa. I have some advantages comparing with other friends, as I have a chance to visit many countries in Africa. And you see, when I share with my colleague, a friend, and family, I said, it's beautiful and safe. Of course, we don't go to some places which is already noticed by the government, by the. Then I think that is, and people there is very friendly, culture rich, and we can see many similarity between our culture, custom, and thing. So many of our family members now they traveling to, even they go by tour or they go by their own. They book the tour with your African tour company. They go there by their own. They buy the ticket. South Africa, Morocco, and also Egypt and some other country, Tanzania, Uganda. I think that more and more Vietnamese, they want to explore, to understand, to know more. I think that is good. I also have a chance to visit different university in Africa, like university in South Africa. So I nearly admire which is your university system, professorship and infrastructures, student. I think that's really good. So in Morocco University, Egypt University, and some other country have the university, we see that if our student in Vietnam, we should encourage more Vietnamese students to go there, and also researcher to go there, to study and do a research. So you see, in Vietnam nowadays, we have very strong leadership. I see many times on television, our Prime Minister keeps saying, if you want to discuss to move forward, you discuss. Don't discuss to stop. And we have to stop to the habit of discussion and not to do. And he always requests us discussion to move forward. So that's a very good chance for us. So I may propose one thing. Each country in Africa and Vietnam should set one of the joint project. One joint project here in Vietnam, which is investor come from your country, Morocco, South Africa, Egypt, and other country. Come here and do one joint venture. You have to be here and to show that your strength. I think energy, green, and even we would like to learn the speed train from Morocco also. So also a lot of the researching from South Africa and company can come here and do at least joint venture with us. And by reverse way, Vietnam also have at least one joint venture to be the model for collaboration. So I hope that at least representative of Vietnam in your country. It's a joint venture. It's not something like just trading. I think trading is good. We should promoting and keep it, but we have to have a joint venture and manufacturing and build up the trust and understanding. Then hopefully from your side also you have at least find the area, at least one joint venture between African country Morocco or South Africa or Egypt here in Vietnam to show our commitment and our relationship. And secondly, I think we would you should promote with our government to ask for more scholarship from Vietnam University for your student. By the same way, you should offer scholarship for our Vietnam student to your country. Without the young generation understanding and studying well, both in Africa for our Vietnamese and here in Vietnam, we cannot, and then we will be slowly like previous time, like in the past. So, and thirdly, I think we hope the embassy, the African embassy and the dean should promoting, I think quarterly talk show or workshop or whatever to discuss to promoting the understanding and the collaboration between business and business between the two countries. Because of now, I think the both side government show the interest and willingness, the policy there.
Yeah.
But now we need the business to hand in hand to promoting. So this type of thing, I see the future of our collaboration between Vietnam and African country. And also, again, I say that I like to remind that is with the very strong commitment of our leadership, top leadership, then if we can saying that, for instance, at least one we choose the joint venture by exchange between the country of Vietnam and Africa. If our government approve and your government approve, then I think that we can move forward. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So that is for the joint venture, for scholarship for students, and also talk show to promote the understanding between businesses to businesses. That is the future for Vietnam and Africa cooperation in the view of Dr. Lê Phương Minh. And yes, thank you very much to all of our guest speakers today. It's been a very interesting and informative talk show. And ladies and gentlemen, with the foundation of traditional friendship, mutual trust and strengths, Vietnam and Africa still have much room and potential for cooperation and to create new vitality for a closer and more fruitful cooperation between the two sides. Once again, thank you very much, ambassadors and our guest speaker, for spending time talking to VOV1 audience. And I would really hope to have you here again very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.